Welcome to today's webinar in the Knowledge Mile series, part of the Lord Mayor's lectures on behalf of Alderman Professor Michael Mainelli, whose theme for his mayoral year is Connect to Prosper. In this free online lecture series, we address the connections in and around the square mile, what Michael likes to call the world's coffee house, and how these might help to tackle future global challenges. I'm Professor Tim Connell, Chairman of the Gresham Society and a Fellow of Gresham College here in the City of London, and a liveryman of the Stationers' Company, which I believe is going to figure once or twice in the webinar today. I'll be convening this session and moderating the questions and answers after today's lecture. This is the plan for today: an introduction for myself, the presentation then from Matthew, and we will then have about 20 minutes for questions. Today we have a really interesting topic, another one in our AI series. If that's a topic that interests you, do go on to the Lord Mayor's lectures. We've got several very good ones. Today we're looking at revolutionizing training with human-centered and ethical AI. Now I'm delighted to welcome Matthew Mays, co-founder of A-dapt, a company concerned with developing solutions with regard to both education and training. And may I say he won the Innovator of the Year prize at the Stationers' Company last year. Firstly, Matthew, can you tell us something about yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Mays. I am the co-founder of A-dapt. It's a real honor. I hope you find this presentation interesting. It's quite, normally as a startup, we're trying to give these kind of like 60-second elevator pitches. So it's quite interesting to kind of take a step back and to kind of look at our technology in a kind of broader sense. So I'm going to be talking the first part, some perspectives on particularly generative AI, why I think this is significant, and make some parallels between that and the printing press on communication technologies. And then in the second part, we're going to show you a couple of examples of the type of work that we're doing. Thanks.
Right now, so can you tell us more about how to revolutionize training with human-centered and ethical AI?
Well, exactly. It's a very important debate right now. Do you want me to start the presentation and then I can take you through some of those things that I'm going to cover?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm just sharing my screen and let me find. Okay. So today's webinar is really about generative AI. As you're probably aware, ChatGPT was launched just 2 years ago in November 2022. By January, it had 100 million users, and it's the most sophisticated large language model that's been created. Large language models are trained with massive amounts of data to accurately predict, what word might come next in a sequence or a sentence. And it's great about it, it responds to natural language and can, to some extent, understand the human intent behind a query, providing helpful answers. And I think also it demonstrates how, if you put AI into something that already works like a search engine, it can become very powerful. This presentation is not about the ethical biases of AI. I'm not expert or really qualified to give that assessment. Plus, I believe that AI is inherently biased. It starts with the training data. We see historical biases, sampling bias, algorithmic bias, deployment bias. Bias everywhere you look. I want to focus more on the intent with which we develop AI. And of course, by recognizing biases, we do all we can to make things as fair as possible. I also think the UK is between a bit of a rock and a hard place at the moment. The EU's historically had much more strict regulations than the US around privacy and data protection. Regulation is clearly very necessary, but EU regulations can be a hindrance to rapid innovation. The EU A-dapt, as we're finding out, is a very blunt instrument, specifically for us as we use a camera-based technology. Now, 99.9% of the other systems work on servers, And the last thing you want to do is be sending biometric data to servers, which is not a good idea for children and young people in particular. But our deep neural network runs on a browser and it's fully GDPR compliant. But the Act assumes all technologies work the same way, and this can undermine the innovation that fixes the original problem. So on to part one, and I want to talk a little bit about becoming a stationer. So as Tim pointed out, we were Innovator of the Year in 2023. We'd previously won an award in 22. And at the awards ceremony, it was quite interesting. I was asked by a chap called Mike James, some of you might know, and he said, was I interested in becoming a stationer? And I thought, well, what's the stationer's got to do with AI? And he pointed up at the great stained glass window of William Caxton with his printing press and King Edward IV. And kind of the penny dropped that stationers are about the communication technologies of the day and the broader benefits that these innovations can bring to society. As somebody who worked in advertising, doing like digital stuff for 20 years, I was very intrigued to find out that Caxton actually created the earliest surviving advert in 1477, which was for the pies of Salisbury, which sadly aren't a delicious foodstuff, but a book of rules to assist clergymen with the changing dates of Easter. This is a picture from the Guildhall from Seymour's London 1734, and I'm sure you'd be more aware than me that guilds go back to the 12th century. By 1515, there were 48 livery companies that are still in the same order they are today, back then. So I searched for some other well-known businesses, brands from the era, and I could only find one that I was familiar with that was still around today, and that was Beretta, the Italian arms manufacturer. And it made me think, how many companies from 2024 are going to be around in the 2500s? Will technology still be dominated by Google, Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, X? Do we want them to be? So the great livery companies, like the great universities, we can be pretty confident they're going to be around in 500 years' time. And I think this longevity really gives us a very important role to play. Oh, and the final point, I was fortunate to go to Skinner's school. My children go to a leather seller's school, and now I've become stationer. So parallels between these two technologies. This is quite a worrying report I saw the other day. By the time, this young person says, by the time I graduate in 4 years, AI is going to be better than humans at engineering and everything. What's even the point of getting this degree if the jobs will be automated away? And that's a very legitimate concern. The OECD expects 30% of EU jobs to be affected by AI by 2030, with 14% at very high risk, particularly for young people entering the workforce. Now, for centuries, scribes were kind of integral to the preservation and dissemination of information, which was written into books, of which there was usually one copy, and this was kept in a chained library like the one in Hereford. And famously, a German Benedictine abbot called Johannes Tremitius, I think, wrote in praise of scribes, asking to preserve this tradition. Of course, he used the printing press and published another 30 books to kind of propagate his message. So whilst we should be worried about seeing the same situation maybe with entry-level jobs for graduates, I'll show you later how we can start to use AI to help people acquire soft skills for the future world of work. Benefits, I suppose, that the printing press dramatically lowered the cost of books, made them accessible to a broader audience. It broke down the monopoly of the elite and religious institutions over education and learning. It helped disseminate knowledge to a bigger audience, wider and faster, accelerating knowledge. And I think there are parallels there with what generative AI will be able to do. Before the printing press, censorship was easy. And Martin Luther came along. After the printing press, it became nearly impossible to destroy all the copies of a dangerous idea. In 1543, we had Nicholas Copernicus and his revolution of heavenly spheres. And of course, you've got Shakespeare's plays, first editions preserved at stationers. So the spread of printed materials accelerated cultural changes and innovation. And without it, we wouldn't have had maybe the movements such as Renaissance, scientific revolution, Enlightenment. And then interesting, Francis Bacon said in 1620 that 3 innovations he thought changed the world forever. There was the gunpowder, the compass, and the printing press. So if we jump forward to 2024, Bill Gates said in his lifetime there were 2 inventions that had struck him as revolutionary. He said the first time was in 1980 when he was introduced to a graphical user interface, the forerunner of every modern operating system. And the second was ChatGPT. He said the whole experience was stunning. I knew I'd just seen the most important advance in technology since the graphical user interface. And he sees it as being as fundamental as the PC, the internet, the mobile phone, saying it will change the way people work, get healthcare, travel, communicate. So his whole industries will reorientate around it. I use this clip of Salman Khan, certainly one of these good actors with the technology, and what he's doing with ChatGPT in the Khan Academy. It might be a little bit jumpy, this video clip.
Do you remember the formula for finding the sine of an angle in a right triangle?
Yeah, I know that the sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse.
Perfect. That's absolutely right. Now, can you apply that formula to find sine alpha in a triangle using the lengths of the sides that we've identified?
Okay.
So that really, I think, illustrates how powerful AI can be in fixing challenges like shortages of maths teachers, which we have in the UK. I'll show you our maths prototype later. But aren't we always being told about the next big thing, blockchain, crypto? 2 years ago, I was reading this book by Matthew Ball, a respected Silicon Valley insider, where he's saying that the metaverse will dominate every aspect of human life, multi-trillion economy, merge the physical and digital world seamlessly. Mark Zuckerberg made similar statements about the metaverse. And I actually worked in this space for many years doing VR, HoloLens, almost 10 years ago, long before this stuff became a thing. But going into colleges now with A-dapt, and this is Jeff here, who's our education director, and this day we were in Stoke College, made me realise how useless all this technology is for the following reasons. So whilst Mark Zuckerberg said it will revolutionise learning, the reality is that these headsets are disorienting, they're uncomfortable, particularly if someone has special education needs. They have limited battery life, they're hard to clean, and it's not a safe, well-regulated place for young people, and there's very limited amount of content. Of course, the big one is the cost. All this stuff is very expensive. And we found that by getting AI on the types of equipment that's already in play in the colleges, we could have really good impact off of the bat. And of course, Silicon Valley dropped the metaverse like a stone in early 23. They quietly buried it and so on. The UK government's been good at picking up with technologies as they've come in, but we're still propagating the message that this VR is going to be the future and the metaverse. These are the kind of things that the UK government's pushing out, and I really think we need to get behind AI more aggressively than maybe we are. So I always think if something's had an impact on me and I can articulate that, then maybe I can convince people, not that I'm an evangelist, but about my point. My first experience with generative AI was in early 2023, and I asked it to summarize what the challenges and opportunities of using Gen AI are in UK education and training. So I can get this very good, useful summary that I can use as a basis to develop some slides. And then I thought, okay, can you turn this into an 18th century pirate ditty, summarizing the opportunities and the challenges? I thought, I'm not going to read this out for you. You don't want to hear me read this. Who might you like to hear read this? And I thought, well, Richard Burton would be good. Unfortunately, he died in 1984.
Yo ho, me hearties, lend an ear to a tale of AI full of cheer and fear. In the land of schools and learning bright, generative AI sets sail in the night. Challenges be fierce as the stormy seas. Beware the kraken of falsehood, mate, for AI's tales may oft misstate. Bias and privacy, a pirate's woe, and students' honesty, down they go. Teachers must learn to wield the AI's might, or face resistance in the dark of night. Yet opportunities gleam like treasure in the hold. AI tailors the course to each sailor's tune, guiding them under the sun and moon. Diverse materials, a treasure trove, making learning an adventurous cove. AI handles the tasks with ease, freeing up time for teaching seas. Aye, AI brings both challenges and treasure to the education shore. With careful navigation, its potential we can explore.
So that's probably not what he'd have wanted, but that's part of the purpose of the demonstration. I wanted to show how we can create completely new things that weren't possible before by AI, but leading to a conversation about some of the serious issues it's creating in terms of like intellectual property, creative compensation. Generative AI feeds off producing content that closely mimics or replicates existing artists, works, videos, and so on. There's a cautionary tale about what ChatGPT has done to Scarlett Johansson. The ChatGPT boss wanted to use her voice because his favorite film was Her, which was about a sad character who was in love with his AI voice assistant. So OpenAI created a Johansson-like voice called Sky. They later claimed they'd not cloned her voice. But then it was quite funny when they launched GPT 4.0. Let me play this clip.
Clearly, AI is still a work in progress, but yesterday, OpenAI introduced a new version of ChatGPT called Omni that can see and talk with you in a human way. And by human, I mean friendly, very friendly.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there, it's going great. How about you? I see you're rocking an OpenAI hoodie. Nice choice.
What if I were to say that you're related to the announcement?
Me? The announcement is about me? Well, color me intrigued. You've got me on the edge of my, well, I don't really have a seat, but you get the idea.
This is clearly programmed to feed dudes' egos. It was obvious she was faking it as soon as she complimented that hoodie. You can really tell that a man built this tech.
So obviously there's more issues than just copyright. Educators are increasingly challenged to detect AI-generated work. In this study, 94% of papers as AI were undetectable. And last but not least are deep fakes. And I don't want to go into this one too much, but I would make a point that dictators and autocrats don't like AI much either when it's telling the truth, because AI has no fear. You can't put it into prison. So what do we need to do in the UK? Well, I think we need to better support UK's innovation community. We could just kind of give it all to Silicon Valley. Should the Khan Academy and OpenAI be used to teach maths in UK schools, for example? In the UK, we're very fortunate to have Innovate UK. We were supported by them. We wouldn't be here today without Innovate UK. But the reality is there's an innovation gap where the UK's, I think, number 3 or so in the world for supporting these disruptive innovations, but we're about number 30 for creating these operational environments that you need so that the product can be developed and it can become useful to customers. So I think that the UK government really needs to clarify the big issues that it wants to have AI address, and then kind of create operational environments. Now I'll contrast this with what we've been doing in France Next, in hospitals, schools, social care, and so on. And now I just want to quickly show you our technology and how this fits into this conversation. Ours is a next generation interactive AI that's focused on creating adaptive and emotionally intelligent interactions. The first pillar is emotion AI, which typically we use to help young people see how they're coming across so they can learn to develop how to present and appear in interviews. Then we're in conversation AI, so we can tailor conversations around any given subject in any area. It could be for preparing for interviews for specific types of universities or specific pathways. And we have a cloud-based content authoring system that enables us to create digital avatars that can adapt to learners in real time. Very important, we maintain privacy. We don't send biometric data to a server. We're not doing facial recognition. And we do all we can to reduce bias. For instance, our deep neural network doesn't profile race because we don't think that's something that's useful to what we're trying to do. Because it works on the CPU on the device, it's very eco-friendly, just uses 8% of the processor. It's very fast. It works in kind of human time. And we're using it mostly for social impact. So it can respond to attention levels. Just by moving the dot, people can start to appear more confident. They can come across better in work situations, and it works in the types of equipment already in play in colleges. I'm going to quickly, how are we doing for time? I'm going to quickly show you our Miss Rose maths tutorial from 2 years ago. To start, we were funded by Innovate UK on the prototype. We had some widespread recognition, a lifetime's ambition of being featured in the Sun newspaper. But seriously, this then became something that was picked up by a curriculum partner, White Rose Maths, and we built this prototype.
The pandemic devastated children's math scores around the world. In the US, math results suffered their worst fall since surveys began, to a level called appalling and unacceptable by the US Secretary of Education. However, there is a shortage of expert math teachers, and while there are plenty of linear math videos on YouTube, with those, the child is just a passive learner, watching one-size-fits-all videos. There is an urgent need for an intelligent video format that can teach math in a new way.
I'm Miss Rose. How are you today? This is the Miss Rose Adaptive Math Tutorial from A-dapt. It's a format that uses AI to adapt math video tutorials in real time.
Great.
Based on factors such as their attention, positivity, and learning engagement, allowing students to learn at their own pace. What's more, students can enter their answers directly into the video and get them assessed immediately, a world first.
Let's find what you know already.
To start the lesson, a diagnostic algorithm works out what the student already knows, assessing factors including accuracy, speed, facial expression, confidence, and more. And then it sends students on the learning pathway which is right for them. Meanwhile, if the student is not paying attention, Miss Rose can gently bring them back to their lesson.
Hello. Would you mind looking at the screen for me, please, so I know you're paying attention?
After each session, the teacher or parent gets a full report on how the student performed. A-dapt software creates multiple pathways through the math tutorial, and it uses a real human teacher on screen, not an avatar, for greater emotional connection. The adaptive math tutorial is fully compliant with strict privacy laws, including GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act. The adaptive math tutorial was tested at a school in the UK. The results were outstanding. 87% of students said they found it easy to learn with the adaptive math tutorial. 100% of students said they liked learning at their own pace. And 100% of students said they enjoyed the experience and liked Miss Rose. That's the sort of engagement we need to get young people back on track with math in the post-pandemic world. It's a new way to learn math that is safe, secure, and personalized to every child. The Miss Rose Adaptive Math Tutorial from A.
Okay, apologies there. I was supposed to hand over because I appreciate that video probably didn't play quite as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rush through this last bit. Oops, and then we're going to show you this one next, which is our employment solution that we've been developing in the south of France, which combines a number of different technologies. Very quickly, and then I'll hand over to Lucas, who's going to play the video. Just to kind of summarize what we're saying, people really need EQ skills in the future world of work. AI is going to be very fast at processing things. It's going to be very cheap, but it actually lacks EQ. It can mimic EQ, but it can't feel things. We know that soft skills are really important for the future world of work. It's said that IQ is less important now than EQ in determining career success. And if you've been through the right career pathways in life, this isn't a problem. You pick this stuff up all the time. If you come from kind of a more disadvantaged background, then it's more challenging. I'm going to show some 3 quick implementations, and I'm going to hand over and we'll play the video. We trialed the technology in a national social justice charity, NACO Education. We've been partnering with Stoke College, and this is a final point I think I want to make is around the French system, the French government creating operational environments across 20 campuses, 6 employers to really test this technology. I'm going to hand to Lucas now to play the final video.
Many you will find current skills become obsolete, as AI and automation are expected to displace a significant number of jobs, shape for young to join the workforce. The OECD estimates that around 14% of jobs are at significant risk, and 32% of jobs could undergo substantial changes. Reskilling and upskilling people will be crucial. We urgently need to develop and adopt scalable, human-centered AI solutions to address challenges faced by individuals at risk of losing jobs to AI, and for those who will be entering the workforce of the future. Adaptive media interacts with humans in a way that is intuitive and responsive. It is aligned with human education needs and behaviors. It is safe and not to be confused with facial recognition, as no biometric data is sent to a server. It integrates multiple forms of AI. By adding emotional intelligence to digital systems, the tutorial gives the learner awareness of how they are coming across, enabling them to develop the emotional intelligence skills that are now essential for career success. We combine this with conversational AI using large language models that can be tailored to any employment or workplace situation to help people acquire essential soft skills and develop self-confidence.
You have done really well and come across as being very positive. Now let me help find the right job for you.
Our video authoring platform creates multiple learning pathways through tutorials, where learners are guided by fully digitized AI tutors.
Bonjour, bienvenue sur GPS. Je m'appelle Julia. Je vais vous présenter la plateforme GPS.
Job seekers discover employment opportunities, and the system selects the most relevant jobs based upon questionnaires, preparing them for specific interviews.
So, I think my friends would say that I'm really enthusiastic. So whenever I try anything, I try really hard.
Okay, so which answer would get Chloe the job? Yes, exactly right.
Validating their level of understanding. improving outcomes for both employer and employee. A-dapt's AI format has been successfully validated in testing, with 3,500 users in UK further education colleges. And in France it has been implemented in 20 colleges, and with regional employers across the Provence-Côte d'Azur region. 70% of job seekers said it helped them improve. 70% went on to have a positive interview, and 50% got a job offer or apprenticeship, delivering life-changing impact for individuals. This is Maeva. She said that it helped her develop her self-confidence and get her job offer. Adaptive media, fostering a human-centric approach to AI.
Okay, I think at this point I'm going to stop and hand back to Tim, because I'm aware I've gone over my time. This would be a good place to end the lecture. Thank you.
Well, that's all very interesting stuff. We're well into the future in a different world here. Of course, being something of a Luddite, what I always think to myself is that years ago when computers first appeared on the horizon, we were told that there would be no more need for paper and pen and things like that. And my waste paper baskets attest to the fact that I still get through a lot of paper. And I had a colleague who was known as the professor of the paperless office, and you couldn't open his door because all those awful great printouts piled up on the floor all around him. So I think it does take some time for people to get adjusted to all this. Can we start off by asking about training? How much training do people need for this to become part of their general working lives?
Well, that's a great question. So for the EQ skills product, I've seen it work in an hour. With some young people who just don't want to do it, and then they're encouraged to do it by their tutors, and they can start to see how they're coming across. Now, typically there's 6 to 8 weeks training. So our education director, Jeff, goes into the colleges, works with the tutors. So it's typically around 6 to 8 weeks. But if you can embed EQ skills and soft skills training into a whole year, then you get lots of formative and summative assessment data. So it can be quite quick.
Clive Bullen is asking, is there a learning management system that uses AI, or is there a company developing its LMS with AI, and might that release soon?
That's a really good question. We work with LMSs, so we can take data, anonymized data, by the way. So we would take, like when we work with schools, we would take a code. So we don't know the user, we don't see them, but we can take their assessment data from the system and we can put it into a learning management system. So we work with a number of learning management systems, and yes, they are, everything is moving into AI. I mean, some of the systems start with the AI and then they build the learning management system, because it can be more fundamental to this new method of teaching.
All right. Now, Shane Drinian asking what we can do about all this. What can the UK do through policy to grow a domestic AI industry and retain the AI startups it already has?
A very, very great question.
We've answered it.
It's a really good one. I think the reality is we've already lost part of the battle. Not that it's a battle, but OpenAI is so dominant that, as the point I was making about the guy who's using the thing and talking to the thing, we stand to lose probably more than the French and the Germans, who are ahead, who are more intrinsically concerned about their language and the way that they speak and their language models. We have DeepMind, but DeepMind's owned by Google, and then it seems to me we have lots of institutions and things. We don't have anything like OpenAI. So I think the first thing is, and it's not us, by the way, we're kind of downstream, we're doing stuff with large language models. I think we need a British large language model that's, you know, that speak. And obviously you can ask ChatGPT to speak in a Scottish or Welsh voice or whatever you want to do, but it's not quite the same. And I think there's a real need to harness Britishness and values in large language models. And then I think the other thing we need to do is decide whether we go all in with the EU AI Act or we hedge our bets. I wouldn't want us to do kind of what the American approach is, because I think very bad things happen with that.
All right. Practical question coming up from Lynn Brooks. Is captioning available? And Lucas has intervened at this point, Lynn, and told us that a caption button CC should be available on your go-to dashboard. Matthew, does that sound right?
Yep.
Good. Right, well then on to Richard Parler. Oh dear. The energy requirements of AI are enormous. For example, a research query through AI uses 33 times the energy of a Google search. What have you done to address the energy issue? AI already uses as much energy as Belgium. I don't know if that's in a single day or a year or a decade, but there we are. So Richard is very worried about the energy requirements.
Yeah. Well, I'm pleased to say we've got something that has a very different method to what you've just described. Our deep neural network runs in the browser. So we're not sending, we do take large language models, we do put videos on servers, but our core proprietary AI is a deep neural network running in a browser. It's 750 kilobytes, very, very fast. It's very simple. That means it's only on when it needs to be on. It's only working when the user needs to use it, and it's not working on a server somewhere. And that's got tremendous advantages. It means we're not sending biometric data to a server. So young people, our information is remained securely locked in the sandbox of the browser. And it's also very low latency. If you want to look at human emotions as a way of building new types of tutorials, or other things like training products and things like that, our brains are programmed. We all work in like a smile. We detect a smile in 50 milliseconds. If you send that data to a server and that server processes and says that's a smile, that's hundreds and hundreds of milliseconds. So it's not in human time. So I'd say we've got a unique solution, but people like the EU and the EU AI Act don't differentiate between the new method of innovation versus the old method of innovation. I hope that answers your question.
Well, that's very interesting. Now, Jamie Hannon coming up with one here. You might almost call it the human interface, literally. Can users who have atypical facial shapes, perhaps because of an injury, or have a condition that means that they can't stay stationary, be able to use the platform?
It's a great question. We work with Harrison College, who are a college that has mostly young people with special educational needs. Now, the use case there is to show them how to understand and map the face. The deep neural network we have is just based upon the mechanics of the face. It's not making any cultural decision. It's just smile. And a smile can mean different things in different cultures. In terms of a data set for what you described, we don't have that data set. I think that's a very important. It's a very important question: is how we build those data sets so that the AI understands what it's seeing and is helpful and useful. I don't even know if those data sets exist, I'm afraid.
What about the regulatory environment? These things are moving so fast, and legislation does take some time to put together. What's the regulatory environment like that for you? Do you find it restraining, or are you hopeful about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually moved into other sectors because of the threat of the regulatory environment. Ironically, we're funded by the EU. The EU's EI Digital Growth Innovation Fund brought some of our company, and they're kind of championing us as human-centric ethical AI. But the strict letter of the law of the EU AI Act means that we shouldn't be working in education and training. even though we're not doing the thing that they're worried about in education and training. So yeah, this is my point about what the approach the UK wants to take. I think it's all solvable, but it comes down to the regulators actually understanding the technologies that they're regulating, and the governments having a strategic idea of what it is they actually want to fix and do with the technology. And then finally, supporting the innovators to then not leave it up to American corporations or consultancies.
3 very important points I hope can be underlined, and maybe somebody who's watching will pick those points up. Helen Ramsey is worried about the classroom environment here. Rather than using Ms. Rose as an alternative to a human teacher, is there a way it could be used as a real-time teaching aid to help teachers to connect with students and help them to tailor their teaching style actually during the lesson?
Absolutely. That's exactly how we did the testing. So the curriculum's year 4 mixed numbers. It was quite a narrow amount that we shot, and it was done in hybrid learning. And the idea was to help children when they progress from year 3 to year 4, to give an assessment of where they are, and then help the children and the assistants in the classroom to see the very clear things that they weren't able to, and also some of the more nuanced things like anxiety. So if they couldn't answer a question they should be able to, and they're very anxious, then the real world teacher might want to see if they have a condition like maths anxiety. So absolutely. But the funding was initially from COVID, where we were looking to help children sustain attention in screen-based learning. So it's kind of a bit of a mixed solution.
Yes. Now, you're very much at the sharp end of all of this. I think there's one sort of broad generic question at the back of all our minds. Does AI frighten you, or do you think this is something which we can actually control?
Well, I hope my analogy was that the printing press was pretty frightening for people, but then it's not, look at all the great things that happened. I think AI is quite frightening, and I think we have to worry more about the intent with which things are being created, and I don't see enough things being created with good intent. So yes, I would say I'm worried about my own children. My own children are worried about AI. They're saying, Dad, what? They're only 13. Then what jobs should we do? Because AI might take all the jobs away. So yeah, I'm very worried about it, I would say.
Very, very interesting answer. May I say, we're coming towards the end of this very interesting session now, but going back to your illustration of the Caxton window, a closely guarded secret in the stationer's company is if you look at the printing press, it's actually been set up the wrong way round. So you couldn't actually print anything on it, but we don't usually tell people that. It was the Victorians who got it wrong, but there we are. So that's all the time. That's all the time we have for questions, but it's worth mentioning that if you've enjoyed this session, the Lord Mayor's lectures do contain a number of sessions on AI from all sorts of different angles, and we've got interesting things coming up now. The City and Wall Street, 2 markets, you can guess the other one, divided by the same language. The one on Friday, I'm really looking forward to. This is the Thames Vision for 2050, and it's worth pointing out that our Lord Mayor is also Admiral of the Port of London. And on the 16th of September, craft, innovation and genius at our fingertips. I think that's one which will be of benefit to us all. So finally, could I thank the audience, thank you for the very interesting questions that have come up. And of course, thank you very much indeed to Matthew Mays. May I point out he's just been appointed as a Freeman of the City of London, and I understand he's also a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. So there's someone who is continuing to spread and learn and look for information and I hope inspiration in all directions. So thank you very much indeed, and don't forget the Lord Mayor's theme for the year, which is Connect to Prosper. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.